world, and welcome to the All Real Show. This is where we discuss issues pertaining to the socioeconomic system and how they relate to everything. Why and how are the fundamental questions. Answer them enough, you get to the truth. I'm your host, Alex. And my guest today is going through the transition from being hoodwinked and blind to the truths of how the monetary system and its workings really are, to an awakening and understanding of the lies and deception we're all told and believe in. He has been speaking out and advocating for a no-money world for over a decade. He's devoted time, money, and resources to the cause. Please welcome Michael E.V. Knight to the show.
Glad to be here.
Glad you're here. So let's just get right into it. I know you were a real estate investor. What's your general experience with money been like in your life?
Well, let's go right back to the very beginning. We might as well start talking about money as a child.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Everywhere I went as a child and I wanted something, my mother would say, no, you need money, you need money. So I heard this a million times in my life. You need money, you need money. So what do I believe? We need money.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going through life, a couple of years goes by, I say, hey, Ma, where does money come from? How do I get it? Well, when you get older, you'll get a job, and the money comes from the banks. I said, oh, okay, that's all I knew at that point. A few more years go by, I say, hey, Ma, where does the banks get the money? My mother knew everything about money, she said, from the depositors. I said, oh, okay. Now, that's all I knew my whole adult life based on what she taught me.
Right.
That's all I knew. That's all I learned in school, that the banks had the money, and the depositors got the money into the banks. That's all I knew. Then 10 years ago, two of my friends, both one very rich and one just a millionaire, well, plain old millionaire.
Right.
They both sent me this video, Zeitgeist Addendum. They say it's not for me, but you might like it because you're always talking about helping people.
Mm-hmm.
When the first guy sent it, the lowly millionaire, I didn't really want to watch it. The Zeitgeist, I said, what's that, some Nazi thing or something?
Yeah, the name, yeah.
And then about 2 weeks later, my other rich friend sends me the same thing. And I said, wait a minute, they don't know each other. So there's no way they could have talked. And they each sent it to me. Let me just start watching it just to see if there's something here, because I want to help people. I want to end poverty and inequality.
Right.
Because I'm an orphan, and that person dying every 3 seconds from lack of money around the world could have been me. Mm-hmm. I was just lucky to have been adopted. So I'm watching the thing, and I'm saying, is this a joke? Are my friends making fun of me? I said, they don't know each other, so why would they both send this to me? And I couldn't understand the no-money world. How do you pay your bills in a no-money world? All these things are running through my head. So I'm watching. Then about an hour and a half into the video, I started saying, well, let me think back on my career in real estate investing. It's okay, I borrow money. I borrow $100,000 from the bank, and over 30 years, I owe $250,000. I said, yeah, okay, I get that.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't see what they're talking about. Then I said, well, let me go back to the first bank. I'm going into the first bank to be the first borrower, and I borrowed that same $100,000. Well, where's that $100,000? It doesn't exist. The bank creates it out of thin air, loans me the $100,000, and then says, oh, you got to pay me interest because we're at risk of losing something we just created out of thin air.
Exactly.
So you're going to owe me back $250,000 on this $100 I gave you. And I said, wait a minute. You're only giving me $100 that you just created out of thin air, and I'm the first borrower. There's no other money in the system at this point.
Mm-hmm.
How can I possibly pay you back $250,000? That's when it hit me. Oh, my God, the whole system's a scam. And I'm street smart. You're not getting a penny out of me unless I want to give it to you.
Right.
So to find out that the whole financial system was the scam con job to begin with was shocking. But I accepted it right then and there. Okay, I accept it. It's what it is. It's a scam. It's a con job. Now how do we get out of it? You know, and they were talking about the Venus Project and things like that, and that's how I get to where I am now. I've been promoting it every day on No Money World for the last 10 years.
Yeah. Well, you know, like you said, too, I mean, we're all products of our environment, everybody. And, you know, that's the only influx of information and sensory that we have, you know. So that's, I mean, when you look at it in the common sense like that, it's easy to understand how everybody is brought up, like you said, to believe something. And when nobody questions it, you know, everybody's parents are saying the same thing. And then, of course, the kids are like sponges, so they just repeat all the same stuff in school. The school teaches you the same thing. you're like, this has to be. It has to be the way that it is.
What I say to people now is, what's the same thing between Santa Claus and the money system? And they'll say, I don't know. I said, they're both lies used to control us. When you were a kid, you believed in Santa Claus, mostly. I believed in Santa Claus as a kid because what happened? Everywhere I looked around Christmas time, there was Santa Claus. I sat on the guy's lap. I got pictures with him. I got pajamas that has Santa on them. I got a Santa mug, a Santa candle, Santa coloring book. He's on TV. He's in movies. He's everywhere. How could there be no Santa?
Right.
So there's a Santa Claus. He exists, right? Yeah, of course he does. He's right there. I sat on the guy's lap. I mean, I'm one of those guys who says, I got to see it to believe it. Well, I saw the guy. I sat on his lap.
You had a picture and everything to prove it.
Now, years go by, and one of my friends says, hey, my older brother said there's no such thing as Santa Claus. I said, is he stupid? I sit on the guy. I got pictures at home with the guy. What was the guy, a ghost? I sat on the guy. I touched him. He's a real guy. He even gave me a candy cane. I go ask my mother, hey, Ma, this kid's older brother saying there's no such thing as Santa Claus. Oh, he's lying. That's what I said. I sat on the guy's lap. What am I, stupid? A couple of more years go by. More friends that say, hey, my older sister's saying there's no Santa. So finally I go to Ma, everybody's telling me now there's no Santa. Well, yeah, there is no Santa. There was this guy called St. Nick over 100 years ago. So you lied to me this whole time.
Right.
And that's the same thing with money. My mother telling me we need money. See, with the Santa lie, she knew she was lying.
Right.
But they doing it to try and make kids happy and all that. But with the money lie, she was falsely lied to believe it by her parents.
Right.
And nobody knew it was a lie. Only the people that created it knew the thing is a lie.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's exactly the same thing. That's what you learned. I made a post today. If you grew up as a baby, say you were my son as a baby growing up, and I taught you that what we call red today is actually green, well, you would grow up thinking it's green. So you say, there's a stop sign. Oh, look at that green stop sign. And until you met somebody else who told you that it was red, now you got a little confusion. Wait a minute. My father tells me it's green. I trust my father. He protects me. He supports me. All this stuff. Everybody's telling me it's red now. How can it be red? Well, and I'm going to tell you, well, I learned it was green. My parents told me it was green. So I'm not lying to you. It's not like the Santa lie. It's what I learned. I learned that color is green.
Yeah. Well, as far as colors, that's one thing on somewhat of a side note that's kind of interesting to me, because you don't know how other people see something. Like, my red might be your green, as far as what we're actually seeing through our eyes, but we label it this, the right term that society has called it or whatever.
Well, it depends how far down the rabbit hole you want to go, because there's my buddy Arthur Christian out in Australia, and I learned a lot of stuff from him. I'm talking about going down the rabbit hole. Mm-hmm. But he says even the words we speak are lies. We were taught them so that we could be controlled, because they can't control us with a stop sign if we don't know what the word stop is.
Right.
That's way down the rabbit hole. You probably don't want to go down there on this one.
Well, this is an open conversation. I mean, it ultimately comes back to the money, obviously, and the money system. But everything is related, everything relates to each other. I mean, we know that obviously on our pin dot of an existence, and we know it throughout the universe, Yeah, it's interesting because I don't know. I've seen a lot of people. I've been doing this a while too, and speaking out and stuff, and just along the same lines. I actually found the same. I always understood the pieces of the puzzle. I always understood this was corrupt. These people are lying. This is all about profit. I think in general, a lot of people are like that to some degree. They understand the pieces. So if you go say, hey, politics is a sham, they'll say, yeah, I know. Or if you say, hey, this is, rigged, they'll say, yeah, I know.
But they'll tell you to go vote.
Right, exactly. And then in the next breath, they say something that kind of contradicts them having a full understanding of everything. And for me personally, actually, it was Zeitgeist as well that did it, because of the way he laid it out and put it in basically layman's terms and explained it. It was literally like putting pieces of a puzzle together for me. And once you are really awake, you can't go back. I mean, that's with any information, and that's where it gets hairy. I mean, it gets thick because, what do? You want to shout it. You want to tell people. You want to inform people. But what's the best way to go about that?
Some people go at it like a drill sergeant. They yell at people. They swear at people. They call them names. If you had done that to me 10 years ago, I would have never watched the video.
Right.
But you're saying, Michael, you like helping people. I think this is for you. It's not for me. It's not for my rich friends, but it might be for you. And now they think I'm crazy. The same two people that said it to me think I'm crazy now.
I really do. I think that is a vital point. It's like I was talking to my sister years ago. She's similar as far as like wanting to inform people of things, and she tries to learn the truth herself, but she's kind of like that, where she'll get frantic and basically making you listen. You got to. And I'm like, you can be the smartest person in the world. You really can. I mean, hypothetically, say you know everything, but if you can't relate that to people, if you can't get people to listen and try to understand, if you shut them down, then what's it all for?
That's right.
And so I think that's really key. And I also think that's why it's so important for anybody who is awake and caring and conscious enough to do it in the best way they know how, because you'll reach people that I can't, and I'll reach people that you can't. Mm-hmm. So I do think ultimately it's a collective consciousness that
plus it wasn't Zykus that woke both you and me up. It was the years of people planting these little tiny seeds in our head.
Exactly.
I had heard occasionally through real estate investing, I have a guy tell me, hey, money creates banks out of thin air. And I just say, oh, yeah, just, make them happy. And in my head, I'm saying, this guy doesn't realize the banks get the money from depositors, because that's all I knew.
Right.
So this was new information I hadn't heard that goes against everything I had been taught. They call it cognitive dissonance.
Right.
How can you believe something you've believed all your life and all of a sudden stop believing it? And I would just say that type of stuff. And then one guy was saying, bank create money out of thin air. Yeah, right. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, well, of course, that's it, man. I mean, that's every single thing is a process. Everything, I mean, you go to cook food, it's a process. You have to get it out. You got to get the ingredients. You got to put it on the right temp. And everything in life is like that. I fully agree. And so that's why I think every little bit does help, I've seen a lot of people, Facebook and otherwise, where they're awake and they're saying stuff and they express their frustration. And that's where it gets a little deep for me, because it is hard. I mean, once you really understand and you're awake, it's hard. You can't go back, and it's heavy, it's a heavy burden. And then how do you go through your daily routine when you see so many other people asleep and going through and playing the game and believing the game? It's
just like that movie, The Matrix, the first one. It's
right.
The exact same thing. You're awake and everyone's still asleep.
Yeah. But it really is wild, isn't it, man? How money, it is everything. It is the control. It is that's how everything.
The destruction of the planet. The killing of humans. Over 20,000 people die needlessly each day because of the money system. Now, it's not money itself. It's that we're forced to use money to live. Money is just, a piece of paper, some change, or a cryptocurrency. But it's the fact that we have to use it in order to live.
Right.
Our ancestors never used money. They worked together in tribes. If I was good at making canoes, I would make canoes.
Right.
Other people would go pick berries. Some people would hunt. Other people would make clothes. Some would build a teepee or something. Housing for the people. That's all about, you worked as a family. You didn't say, well, wait a minute, I worked 8 hours on this canoe. You only worked 1 hour picking berries. That's not fair. You should come work 7. They didn't think that way.
Right. Yeah, it was a collective, of course.
Yeah. What's that saying? From what you have, what you can give to what people need. You work providing what you can provide, and it provides everybody's needs. The guy who's a baker or the woman who's a baker, she bakes for everybody. Her and a few people that like baking. Other people cook the food. Other people are growing the food. Some people are driving us around. Now, some people have easier jobs. That's just the way it is.
Right.
Let's say, who works harder, the farmer or the lady baking? Well, the farmer works harder.
Right.
You know. So does the farmer deserve more? I think the farmer in a money system should be paid $1 million a year each, every farm worker.
Right, exactly.
Because without them, we'd all be dead, unless we're growing our own food. And some people have a garden, yeah, but they can't eat, the whole nutritional value they need for a whole year from their little garden in the backyard.
Yeah, well, of course, that's another thing is everything about the system and the place that we're at is backwards, basically. I mean, you have a girl with a big booty, making millions of dollars because she's got followers or something like that, contributing nothing to society. Nothing to society at all. I mean, and then you have people, research scientists trying to find cures for diseases and stuff like that. And, they make 70, 80, 1,000 or whatever a year.
Well, look at pro sports players. I mean, you want to see basketball, well, you can go see a college team. You don't have to go see a pro team. You can see a high school team. You don't have to go see a pro team. And there's other guys just as good who didn't make the cut. They were 0.5% didn't make it that day. They might have been sick when they tried out for the team.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, too. I mean, to think that only people you see basically have knowledge or skills, stuff like that. I'm a musician. I've played drums my whole life. I've, been in bands and stuff like that. And there's so many good musicians that you will never, ever see. You'll never hear of.
Absolutely.
Millions. Yeah, exactly. Millions, right. You're not talking one or two. That's the thing. But because
my cousin-in-law, he's incredible. He could hear a song 2-3 times and he can play it on his guitar.
Yeah, I can actually do that. I
can't remember notes.
Again, everybody's different. Everybody has different talents, and that's kind of the point of the collectiveness,
That's right.
I might be good at drums, but I'm horrible at, cooking. You might be a chef and you can't play a note, like you said. It doesn't.
That's right.
I see everything as simple as that, really. I see everything as basically a thing. It's just a thing. So a lot in my life I've had that where people, I don't know, they almost act like, oh, you can play drum, like it's and I'm like, yeah, what does that mean? It's just something I do. It's just a thing, So I don't know. I don't get caught up in the stuff like that. I mean, everything is just a thing. You're good at some things. You're not good at some things. But you're talking about the post you just did. I actually looked a little bit ago and I saw the red and the green, but I also saw the homelessness one. Where you mentioned that, and I wanted to talk about that because that's something I've thought about before. And it's interesting you pointed out some of the problems that, would arise from that is meaning if you tried to, start a small town, take over a small desolate town or, incorporate it into one that's already, functioning and use basically homeless people or people out of work, stuff like that. And the difficulties of that, it's potential there because, think of how many, especially with automation, displacing more and more people who have skills. If I'm a carpenter, but then you come up with a machine that does it, twice as fast. Obviously, I'm not going to have a job at some point. That doesn't mean I can't do it or I wouldn't do it. One of the things I'm really trying to do with this, of course, is to have like-minded people talk. I'm actually looking forward to talking to people not as like-minded because I think that's just as or maybe even more important. But ultimately, I'm really trying to, I don't know if get a platform is the right word, but kind of get out there, and get exposed and ultimately try to connect with like-minded people and people who, kind of formulate something. But like we were saying earlier, I think every part is intricate, and everything that we do has like you said about all the pieces all leading up to the zeitgeist. It's the same, all the people throughout history that have been, saying, truths and knowledge and that type of stuff that we still read and learn off of today that help us get to where we're at.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other thing is we have to remember that we have a ticking time bomb. It's called the environment. The environment is being destroyed more and more every second of the day. So if it doesn't happen within our lifetime, that may be the reason we don't finish our lifetime like we should have. When the oxygen's all gone or destroyed and dirty and the water's all destroyed and dirty, that's it. It's game over.
Right. I think that's another reason, actually, that more people are waking up or becoming aware because they're almost forced to. We only have this one planet. That's it. And there's nobody coming to save us. There's none of these. You can believe what you want, but like you said, when you're laying there, suffocating from bad air or drinking poisoned water or whatever the case, or in a concentration camp because of the economy collapse and they're trying to, control society or whatever the case, we're here. I mean, we're the only ones that can do this.
Right.
We're given everything. We are given everything. Everything we need is right here. And to not utilize it is beyond, upsetting. It's really sad. But, the way I kind of explain it is it's like if you hold your hand, a couple inches in front of your face. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's like that at this point in the world. Everything is right there. We have the answers now. We have the technology. We have the know-how. We have, we know where all the resources are and that there's enough of them. It's just a matter of doing it.
Yeah. Well, it's like Jacques Fresco says as far as resources. When I first heard the Zeitgeist Addendum, at that point now all I know is we need a whole new city. We need this fancy new city. And I'm a real estate investor. I've built some houses. I know what's involved. We need the money, obviously. Mm-hmm. Then we need to get people to draw the plans, and then we start building. I mean, it's that simple. There's really nothing hard to it. The only thing is you're talking about millions, maybe even to get that done. And then a couple of weeks later, I watched another Jacques Fresco interview, and he said, it's not about the cities. He said, it's a mindset. And right then it hit me. I said, oh, my God, he's right. Has nothing to do. We don't need the cities. We don't need any robotics. We don't need any machines. We don't need any technologies. It's a mindset. Like, go back to what I was saying about our ancestors. They lived together in a tribe, and they shared the work. That's the right mindset. Whereas today, we keep separate. Like, we live in apartments apart from each other, as Arthur Christian says.
Yeah.
We call us individual. In divide you all. So we're always separated. There was a comedian on it. It was real funny. And he's saying, when we were a kid, when the doorbell rang, everybody used to go crazy. Hey, somebody's here to see us. Now the doorbell rings, everybody, hi, shh. It's true.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of ironies there that I've noticed too. Seemingly we get, on one hand, more interconnected and stuff like that, but on the other, it seems like we grow farther apart. And of course, we're not really individuals. We identify with ourselves as, I'm a man, I'm, this color, I'm white, but it's just identities that we create for ourselves,
that we were told. We didn't create them. We were told.
Well, exactly. Exactly. They've been created, and adapted through time and, I like I say, words are for description, not definition, and,
yep.
Instead of saying every time I'm talking, hey, I was looking at that thing with the pictures, flashing pictures in the sand, you just say TV,
That's
know?
Right. That's what I say about countries. Like, there aren't really countries. That's something that's man-made. But if I want to say, okay, I'm going to meet you in Italy, we know where to meet instead of, okay, I'll meet you over there. Where? We're talking about a whole planet. Where am I going to meet you?
Yeah, exactly. It's coordinates, just like time. Time is something that we made up. It's a measurement,
Mm-hmm.
And exactly, it's coordinates. You say, I'm going to meet you at this spot. That's the first coordinate. At this time, that's the second coordinate.
That's right.
On
this day.
On this day, right?
In this year.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'd be walking the earth looking for each other.
Yeah, and speaking of countries too, man, I don't know. It's just everything, the division, it just, it never stops, they will, anything like Carlin said, anything that makes us different, they will mention, they will talk about. And, the one constant throughout history that, has remained is a hierarchy. Is some form of elite, whether it was during the main religious times, and they had all the religious clergy and whatever terms they used for them, that was, running stuff. And now it's kings, queens, politicians. But another person I'm going to talk to, she's very much with the the no government and stuff like that. And
well, even with that, we can't just go tomorrow and say, okay, there's no more government, because the mindset isn't there. Just like no money. Suppose money was to disappear tomorrow, it would be a total disaster.
Right.
Because most people have this attitude and mindset: I will not work if I don't get paid. Okay, well, who's going to grow food now? Money's gone. Who's going to grow the food?
Yeah.
Well, not me. I don't like growing food. Okay, so you're not going to grow food. You're not going to eat? Oh, well, I'm going to eat. Well, how are you going to eat if there's no food? People don't think things through. Even most of the people in the transition who I think are at the top of the transition, they don't think things through when they write something.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the posts they make, I'm like, hello, are you sure you're in transition? I think everything through. I think on this every day for 10 years.
Right.
I look at what'll work and what won't work based on my experiences. It's easy. Any plan will work. I've seen 20, 30, 40 plans. Every one of them will work. You need the right people with the right mindset to actually want it and actually do it. If that doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen. It don't matter how good my idea is. If nobody follows it and does it, it's not going to happen.
Right, exactly. It has to be realistic, and you have to think of the transition, right? Because it's not a matter, kind of like I said about, the hand in your face, the answer's right there. Yeah, it is. But to think that, it's people's just going to say, oh, yeah, that's true. It's right there. Let's just do it. Everything's a transition. And that's where I think a lot of the problem, lies, because even if you have, people say that, that want to contribute and a company that wants to be a part of, this, like the small town transition, and you still need the money, which is really currency, of course, for everything, kind of like you mentioned earlier as well about, all the supplies needed, the fuel, everything, and the people need the money. So I don't know. That's where I think it's tricky.
It's simple. The really hard part is that last step over from no money to no money. But it's simple as far as, let's say you and me worked in the same town. You're a barber. I'm a yoga teacher. Okay, you agree. It starts out as barter and trade. It doesn't end up as that. It ends up as something different.
Right.
But it's barter and trade because it's only you and me. There's nobody else in the group yet. So I'll tell you what. Come once a week, I'll give you a free yoga class, and you give me a free haircut once a week. We agree on that. Okay, now, of course, there's no money. My yoga class is usually $25. Your haircuts are $20. But we call it even. It's like a time bank type thing.
Yeah, exactly. As a matter of fact, right now I have a friend who's a part-time personal trainer, and believe it or not, her friend cuts hair, and that's what they do. One cuts her hair, and then she trains.
That's why I said this is nothing new.
Exactly.
It's just different than capitalist thinking. Instead of, I wouldn't do that. I want to get paid. I deserve $200 as a personal trainer out here in California. I'm not going to trade you for a $20 haircut. See, that's the mindset.
Yes.
As soon as you're thinking money, that's what I like about Ubuntu contributionism. Every person's labor is considered equal in value. Now, see, with the money mindset, people say, well, why will people want to be doctors when they're going to go through all that training? Because they want to help people, and they're getting the training free in a no-money world. That's why they'll do it.
Exactly.
Otherwise, we won't have doctors and people. I haven't been to a doctor in 30 years, so.
I don't go that often either. And, that's another point that a lot of people mention the doctors, and of course any other profession that takes a lot of, years of training and stuff. But exactly, I mean, first of all, if you take the money out of it and they're like, well, I'm not going to do it now because there's no money, that's good. You don't want them to do it that's the whole point. So if they're doing it for the money, that's a problem, and I mean, yeah, if you just flash forward and, and you think of how it would be once everything is transitioned, of course, that's how it would be, because people are good by nature. People aren't greedy by nature. They, it's kind of like I said on my introduction, about how you get a natural good feeling when you do something good for somebody or society, and you get a natural bad feeling when you take advantage or whatever. Even if I take advantage of you and I just made $1,000, I'll rationalize, I'll justify it because I made $1,000, but deep down, I don't feel good about that. And those are natural instincts, and natural, of course, is the key word, that, that is, for me, and what I say is how something kind of is true. There's no motive behind it. There's no incentive, that's real. I mean, those are the real, the way people would be.
Yeah, one guy from Australia, he's from the indigenous tribe. He said when they were children, no one said please or thank you. It was expected of you. You were expected to help the family, the tribe, or they would tell you to leave. It's that simple. You don't want to help out? Leave. We don't need you here.
Right.
And that's how life is. And people will ask me, well, what happens to the people who don't want to do anything during the transition? Well, they can't join us. If you don't want to help out one day a week to get to this no-money world where we only have to work one day a week, then you have to wait till we get to the no-money world. I've had people ask me, if I gift $1, now I said gift $1 a week towards a no-money world movement, am I guaranteed a free house? Talk about mindset. What? I've gifted over $10,000 total in the last 10 years. Where's my free house? I didn't see it. These people want it for $1 a week.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the mindset we're dealing with. It's like they don't want to do anything unless they guaranteed something 1,000 times more than what they did.
Yeah, well, of course, that's the surroundings. Again, when it's all you see, when it's all every human is a product, well, every creature is a product of your environment. So we mentally have rose above, and, a lot of other people have. And so you see it differently. Once you know the truth and you identify the truth, you see it right away,
I think goals have a lot to do with it, too. See, my goal, being an orphan, was always to end poverty and inequality around the world, because that could have been me. Like I said, I could have been dead as a child. Had I been born in maybe India or Africa or something with no money, no parents, I could have been dead already. So it's because of that, and I see everybody as my family. I don't care what color you are, because somewhere in my family tree could be that color.
Yeah. Well, I think that a lot comes from experience, from your background, like you said. That's the reason I have personally such an open mind, and I have been in so many different situations in my life that I see things from all sides. For example, if you've never been to jail, you can read about it, you can study and stuff, but if you've never been there, you really don't know exactly what it's like.
That's right.
And so you won't, experience, the way I experience is 100% priceless, because the way I try to explain that is you can study something from the time you're born to the time you're 40 years old. You can read about it. You can do, everything you can to study it. But until you experience it, and once you experience it, you will have a totally different outlook, appreciation, understanding, whatever of that. And that's the thing with experience. There's no way to replicate it. There's really not.
It's like driving a car. You could read 1,000 books on driving a car. So you get in the car and actually drive it. Totally different thing. Exactly.
And, obviously the issue a lot of people have when it pertains to them about other people making laws and rules to control. One of the big ones that I've always heard is, people who like to smoke weed or whatever, and they say, how can this person write a law or say it's illegal and they've never done it? Well, that's true, but that's true of anything.
They were paid off to make that law.
Of course. Of course. The laws, all laws are man's laws, and they're there for control, suppression, obedience, and punishment. That is it.
One law, do no harm.
Exactly. It's kind of like everything I learned in kindergarten or something. And
share, take your turns.
That's it.
Clean up after yourself.
Right. Yeah, it's really that simple, And
well, let's go back. You mentioned being open-minded.
Yeah.
We all believe we're open-minded, every one of us.
Yeah.
Now, here I am going through life. I got into weightlifting, and I used to read the muscle magazines, and Arnold Schwarzenegger says you got to eat all this meat and you got to drink all this milk. So that's all I knew at the point. I wanted to look like him, so I ate 12 hamburgers a day for breakfast, a gallon of milk a day, a quart of ice cream a day. I got up to over 250 pounds. I was a big boy, 18-inch arms, 52-inch chest. And then one day I'm at some restaurant, and this little skinny guy, he was probably in his 50s. I was in my 20s. He comes up to me and says, "Wow, you look amazing." I said, "Thanks." He says, "But how's your insides?" I said, "What do you mean my insides?" He said, "How's your health?" I said, "I don't know. I feel healthy." He goes, "Yeah, you could feel healthy, but you could have a heart attack tomorrow." He asked me what I ate. I told him. He was like in shock. Oh, my God. I said, "Why? What do you recommend?" He said, "Well, I'd recommend a vegetarian lifestyle." I said, "Are you on a vegetarian lifestyle?" He said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, I think you got like 8-inch arms. I got 18. I said, "I kind of like the way I'm going right now." And we parted. He shook my hand. He was very friendly. And years go by, and I used to always think about it. But Arnold is telling me, I'd rather look like Arnold. Arnold says you got to eat meat and drink milk and I'll do all this stuff. So I'm going to still follow Arnold for now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going through life, and I'm getting more into health, and I'm learning meat isn't good for us. Dairy products isn't good for us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, wait, now I'm getting conflicting information. Then Anthony Robbins did a tape, and he had mentioned this other guy, Robbins, wrote a book. They weren't related, Diet for a New America. So I said, all right, let me read it. I read that book, and right around that time, late at night, I was up around 1 in the morning, there was a show meat. And they took this huge, it was like a chainsaw. They got this cow hanging, and they cut the thing right down. And right then and there, I quit eating meat.
That was it, huh?
Right then, see, all those things came together. If it wasn't for that guy originally starting me on that path,
right.
saying what he said, this is 10, 15, maybe 20 years later that it happened. But it took that guy planting that first seed. If nobody ever planted that seed, I'd still be eating 12 hamburgers a day right now.
Right.
Gallon of milk a day, quart of ice cream a day. Still be over 250 pounds.
Right.
But I thought I had an open mind. I didn't immediately say, "Oh, yeah, this guy said this. Let me go investigate it more." No. He didn't look like Arnold. I want to look like Arnold. I'm going to follow Arnold.
Right.
Of course, Arnold never mentioned he took steroids. Oh, nobody told me about that. I found that out later. Oh, so there was a little scam behind that. You're telling me you eat all this stuff, but you're doing steroids.
Right.
Well, I'm not going to do steroids because I read up on them, and what happens? You lose your hair and all these others. You have zits all over your body. One of my friends took it. Had zits all over his body. He was huge, powerful, but now today he can't do anything. He's in his mid-50s. No matter what he does, he gets hurt. He goes to fall on the bed, he gets hurt. All that heavy lifting and the steroids.
Yeah. Yeah, it was unnatural. It broke his body down.
But he wanted to look like Arnold. He found out Arnold did steroids, and he took the path of doing steroids. He never went anywhere with competitive bodybuilding, but that was his dream, but he just could never make it. He competed on a local level, but he didn't even place. So, we spend so much time, like the waste of time on the money system. It's so sad. I go watch people working 40, 50, 60, 70 or more hours a week. And I tell them, you realize we only need 1 day a week to work. And They can't believe it because this is all they know. They're stuck in this rut. And I'm trying to pull them up. They say, how do we do it? Well, we got to work together. Well, nobody will want to do it. Well, that's why it doesn't happen. Mark Mason said yesterday something which I turned it around a little and said, the reason we don't have a no-money world is nobody's working towards a no-money world. Even I'm not technically working towards it. I'm just promoting it and getting the word out there because I can't find anybody in my town or even state that wants to do anything. They all say it sounds good, but it'll never happen.
Right.
They don't laugh at me because they all knew I was a real estate investor and I made decent money. So no one will laugh at me, but all my capitalist friends now think I'm crazy. You care about people or you don't. He thinks he cares about his employees. Oh, I treat them well. I pay them $15 an hour. Yeah, but they still can barely survive. They don't even have a car. They can't afford a car to come to work. They're going to ride a bike to his job.
Yeah, well, perspective is everything. I mean, it really is. And you're right. I mean, that's the reality of, we would only work, 1 day a week, give or take a couple hours or a day, but it would be totally different. That's how it would be. And, one of the simple things that I actually say a lot pertaining to that people, right in your face, but people don't think about. Okay. For example, take any establishment. It really doesn't matter what it is. Most things don't matter the specifics because the rules don't change. The game doesn't change. It's just a different place or people or establishment. So in this case, let's just take, I won't even name drop, but let's just take a fast food restaurant. Okay. And this one restaurant in particular, they have 20 employees that work, 40 hours a week, each one. Okay. But if that's what you're telling me, this establishment is saying we need 20 people that work 40 hours a week, because we all know if they didn't need that, they wouldn't hire those people or use those many people. So Absolutely. if that's the case, how many people right outside of the door, hypothetically, don't have a job and they're going and getting food stamps or different things to get them by? And then the average outsider looking in says, oh, you're a mooch, you're this, you're that, go get a job. Well, I can't get a job. But in a common sense world, instead of those people, 20 people working 40 hours a week, all those people out there that so-called, quote, need a job, they would just come in and work. Everybody would work one day. The same end result would happen. Right?
Not the same end result. You would get the same amount of product and service, but
production.
It'd be a whole different world.
Right. I meant end result as far as the production, as far as that entity of a business. Right. You would have the same result as far as, what's being done and the outcome and stuff like that. But instead of 20 people working 40 hours a week, you would have 100 each work 1 day a week.
Well, one example I give is I was in Florida one time. I pull up to a red light. I look to one side. There's a CVS. There's one pharmacy, CVS, I think it was. You go to the other side. There was a Walgreens, and directly across the street there's a third pharmacy. I mean, talk about a waste of resources and people's time.
Exactly.
3 pharmacies on the same corner selling the same exact stuff for basically the same price.
Mm-hmm.
All we need is one of them. Say, right. Call it a community co-op. And all those people sharing the work of the one, our expenses just dropped 67%. So our income went up with the same amount of 3 now going into the 1. We can now give all those employees health care benefits. We can raise their pay. And we still have money left over to help start other businesses.
Right.
See, it's a mindset. It's like one thing I mentioned is barbers. I have a barber. He has his own store. He owns the building. He has room for 4 chairs. One of them is his. He tries to rent out the other ones at $100 to $125 a week, and people will come in for a week or 2 and then have to leave because they're not making any money. They don't have any customers, so they have to leave. So he just sits there with 3 vacant chairs sitting there. Now, you got barbers all over town doing the same thing. I drive by during the day. They're all sitting in their own barber chair, reading the newspaper, hoping and praying somebody comes along. Well, if you got together with 3 other people and they came into your spot and you all shared in the work, right, and the income and the expenses, well, everybody's expenses just dropped 75%. And now you could each take 1 week off every month. And on the weeks you do work, you could work a day or 2 even less.
Yes.
It's a simple mindset. See, but they're stuck in the mindset of greed. My friend thinks he's going to get rich being a barber. He wants to have a mansion someday. He wants to have a yacht. That's his goal. You can't become rich as a single barber. It's impossible. You can only do so many haircuts per hour. If you're real fast, you might be able to do 4 haircuts in an hour at $15 a piece. That's $60. Times 10 hours is $600. And if you work to 40, that's $2,400 a week. That's not a lot of money.
Right. Yeah, well, a lot of people, sadly, from what I've seen, they don't question the things they should be questioning. It's kind of something like I say that everything you're not questioning is what's affecting you. Everything that
what
people
you're afraid to question.
Well, people are afraid, I think, but I from what I've seen, trying to being very conscious and aware and observant, that it's a group mentality. I mean, like, for example, I've worked different jobs, and you go in, everybody's on the same mindset in that job, roughly that, this is what we do, this is how we do it. And if you go in and say, well, hey, this is more efficient, or this makes more, what are you talking about? You just started. You don't about, you just go. And that's, in a sense, I think, how jobs and society in general go along. They just accept it, that this is what it is. And,
Stockholm syndrome, they call it.
Yeah. And that is a general way that the way I do it, and I try to tell other people, is you question everything individually. Take out all the other, well, this is, this law, or this is how it's done at this job. For example, like in a job, if you go in and you're doing something, you question that by itself. Why am I doing this like this? This doesn't make sense. And the two fundamental questions to get to the truth is why and how. Hands down. You answer those enough, you will get to the truth.
There's a talk about a turkey at Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
This guy's wife, every Thanksgiving, will cut 4 inches off the turkey and put it in this huge pan. Now, there's another 6 inches of room there, so he says, why do you cut the 4 inches off? She says, well, my mother always did. So they call the mother. He says, why do you always cut 4 inches off the turkey before you put it in the pan? She goes, well, my mother used to do that. So Thanksgiving comes, and the grandmother happens to be there, and he says, hey, Grandma, how come you cut 4 inches off the turkey? She goes, oh, the pan was too small, so we had to cut 4 inches off.
And he's been doing it.
But everybody just kept cutting off the 4 inches, even when they had bigger pans.
Exactly. Exactly. And in general, that's kind of how a lot of things are done. That's what I mean about just question everything, individually. And that's how personally I've come up with a lot of better ways that suit me. Everybody has different ways that suits them better. But that's how I did it. That you just question, well, wait a minute, what would work better for me here? Bigger pan, or go through the trouble of sawing this damn turkey in half, maybe a bigger pan. Let's just do that. Problem solved.
I'm finding too, a lot of it is ego. It's overcoming
the fear
of the answer. Because once I first heard the answer, I told you, it was a slap to my face. My ego was like, hello, you've been lied to your whole life. Most of your ancestors have been lied to your whole life. I had to accept that. If I couldn't accept it, I wouldn't have gone on this journey.
Right.
That's not true. Once I accepted the realization of it, now I could move forward. That's why people are stuck here in the money system. They can't move forward. After I talk, I can explain this to anybody in 5 minutes. I do it with money. I'll take 10 pieces of paper, and I'll write $1,000 on each. I say, okay, I'm the first bank. You're the first borrower. You're going to borrow $10,000 from me. Here's your $10,000. Now you're going to pay me interest because, I might risk losing this thing I just made out of thin air. They say, okay. I said, we'll make it just 10%. So you owe me $11,000 at the end of the year. I say, okay, a year goes by, give me my $11,000. And they look at me with their mouth dropped. They said, but I only got $10,000. I said, okay, give me the $10,000, and now I'm going to take the house you gave me as security for that loan.
Yeah.
Just sit there bewildered. They can't comprehend what just happened. I said, do you see the scam yet? It's impossible. The interest is never created to even have a chance of paying it back. But what happens, because people say, well, wouldn't it have collapsed on the first day, the first year? No, because everybody's borrowing money.
Right.
Even if you don't borrow money, you're in debt.
Exactly.
You're paying bills and all that because the electric company has a mortgage to pay. The gas company has mortgages to pay. This one, the guy creating that service has a mortgage to pay. So you got to pay his debt. So you're in debt with him.
Right.
That's what the system is.
And it's never, ever enough. You never have enough. That's another thing that I've encountered at work. I used to work 6 days and, 48, 50 some hours, as much as I could because I thought, get more money. Until, of course, I started waking up and realizing it's futile because there's never enough. There's never enough. So, what do you do? And I've gotten to the point now where I've enabled myself to do my slave job less so I can focus on other things. But, Michael, you can't tell you how many times people have asked me in my job, what do you do then? What, don't you need money? Like, why are you not working more? And I'm like, well, if that's the case, why don't you just sleep here? Why do you ever leave?
They actually do that. I think it's Japan or China. The people actually live where they work.
Oh, my goodness.
And I'm not talking a big bedroom. I'm talking there might be 8 to 12 people in one room on bunks.
Wow.
When I went to Telluride, Colorado, there was an old ghost town, and the lady was explaining they had 8-hour shifts. You went to work for 8 hours, you went to the bar for 8 hours, and then you came and sleep for 8 hours. And you all shared those beds. So one bed was 3 people shared it for those 8-hour shifts. And they had a bunch of beds in there. It was amazing. And I'm like, man, we've been slaves for so long.
Yeah, it's amazing what you can get used to, right?
That's what well, we're born into this. And that's another thing I'll ask people. They'll say it's crazy and all this, but I'll say, all right, wait a minute. Just suppose you were born on this planet and this planet never had money. How would you live?
Right.
And, some of them will think and say, well, I guess I'd have to do stuff like what? Like grow your own food? Well, yeah, I might have to do that. In fact, let's go back to growing your own food.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what started all this stuff. They came up with the idea of mine. Like I would put some seeds in the ground, I'd put a fence around it and say, this is mine. And then some thugs came along later and said, wait a minute, I got a better idea. This whole area is mine, even though your garden. So you're going to pay me half, give me half the food you grow. I'm going to have my other thugs kill you. And that started this whole system. What do you think a king was? Before he was a king, what was he called? A thug. That's all he was.
Right.
Then they had better name. What were laws? The king declared. That became the law. This one person who ruled over everybody through fear. I mean, I watched shows about kings on TV, and it was crazy. And they said, if you didn't do what the king said, they take you to the center of town and chop your head off.
Yeah.
So they say, okay, who else doesn't want to pay rent to the king? And everybody, we got to pay rent.
Exactly.
So now everybody growing up is a slave. The kids are growing up, don't do that. They'll cut your head off. You got to pay your rent. You got to pay your rent.
Yeah, and the reality is you have to be essentially psychopathic to be at the top. I mean, you have to be ruthless. You have to be, that, because that's the name of the game, is acquisition, the more you control. And that's of course how it's done. I mean, it's ownership. That's the whole key. If I own something, I control it. I regulate it. I charge the prices, I decide who gets a job, who doesn't. And exactly, that's, if you do look back in history, that's how it was done. Even if you talk about the United States, I mean, you could talk about any country, essentially, that's how it's been done, through force, fear, coercion, propaganda. But a lot of it back in the day was force. They came. Yeah, they came
Even
in.
today, it's force. If you own a house and you paid off the mortgage, do you still own that house? Don't pay your property tax.
Right.
Close that house.
Exactly.
The kingdom. I call them the kingdom. The town. The town people that run the town. They're the kingdom. The mayor is the king. We don't look at it that way. We don't use those words anymore. See, they changed words.
Right. That's what
like
they did.
a thug became the king. All of a sudden, he was looked up to, just like a rich person is looked up to today. Why?
Right.
What'd you do? All you do is exploit people.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't understand exploitation. I used to say the same thing people say to me. I'm not exploited. I could go work at any job I want. Yeah, but it's the fact number one, you have to work.
Right.
And any job you go to, there has to be excess profit that the owner takes from you, or the owner can't stay in business.
Right.
He closes down. Why would he stay in business? I got 100 employees, and I make the same pay they make. Why don't I just go work for somebody else? Why do I have all these headaches? Why have a mortgage? Why have all these things?
Yeah. Yeah, and the system, of course, was wrote by the bankers. I mean, everybody knows more and more about at least the Federal Reserve and how it was enacted. And, they tried before that, like the beginning of the 1900s, but it didn't get through, Congress and all that. And then, of course, they did the whole secret meeting at Jekyll Island, and they drafted the Federal Reserve Act and passed it Christmas Eve, when most people weren't even in.
Back to government and hierarchy. See, like in a little town, we might be able to get away with some stuff. We might be able to make smoking pot legal. But then again, if the state comes in and says, no, you can't, they could actually arrest the mayor and the town council for not following the right laws of the state. Same thing with federal. See, it all starts at the top. They decide what you can do. They let you have a little leeway here and there, make you think you're free. You're not free. Go try and start a Venus Project city somewhere without the government's approval. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes it takes 5 years to get approval for one building, a big, huge building in the middle of town.
Right. Yeah, of course it is. Of course we know, but like I mentioned about the laws, that's what it is. It's the control. I've wrote several pieces on things that we've covered, and law being one of them. Exactly. It's people don't even think about that. I just go, this law, that. And I get to like 20 and then I finally just like, whatever. Like there's laws literally for every single aspect of life. And
laws that contradict themselves.
Exactly. For the same area, like where I'm at, you're at, doesn't matter. For the same act, there's a county law, a city law, a state law, a federal law, right? And
we call that freedom.
Exactly.
That's how brainwashed we are. We honestly believe we're free.
Yeah. I know. I mean, I've never believed that, which is why when I was younger, I've always rebelled. I didn't actually know why I was rebelling. I guess in a sense I was a rebel without a cause because I didn't know exactly.
That's how I was, yeah.
Right. You just, if you think, shit is not right. Everything is a lie. You go these places, you see the lies. And so I think that's
one thing I never believed in, even as a kid, was authority. Other than my parents, I didn't believe anybody had a right to tell me what to do.
Yes.
And I'd always get in problems with teachers. I was always staying after school because they would say something and they want to be tough and say, and I get the last word. I'm the teacher. And I would always respond, okay, you got it. I would not stop. As long as they kept saying, I said, I get the last word. I said, you got it. Until they sent me to the principal's office. You don't have authority over me.
Right. No, I'm the same way, Michael. I've always had a problem with that, with authority, and that's essentially one of the main issues is trying to control other people. Again, I actually wrote something pertaining to that as well, and how that's a fundamental flaw in anything, in personal relationships, in governments, in anything, is the subsequent control that they impose, and that's why if you're with a spouse or any of these types of things, the more you try to control them, the more friction you will have, because people as individuals ultimately will try and do what they want to do, period. Mm-hmm. It's that simple. And that's who we are as individuals. And I personally feel like if you're not hurting anybody else or the environment, have Absolutely. At it. Yeah, you know what I mean? Knock yourself out.
I have interesting conversations with guys at the gym who are cops. I have to ask them, what makes you think you have authority over me? And these are friends, guys I've seen at the gym for years.
Right.
And, the town gives me authority. I said, who gave the town authority to have authority over me? And they can't answer it. Well, they might say the voters. I said, what gives any individual voter the right to give away my authority over me?
Exactly.
No one has that right. I said, can I go steal that guy's car right now? He goes, no. I said, suppose someone did steal the car. Can they sell it to me? No. Okay. That I'll agree with. But who tells you I can't walk in the street? Now, I know it's safety reasons. Most of the laws, they call it for safety. Don't walk in the street, you might get hit by a car. But you're going to arrest me because I walked in the street? You're going to arrest me because I jaywalked?
Yeah,
I actually had a cop stop me for jaywalking one time. And I don't get mad at them. I just ask them nice questions. I talk with them. I mentioned my cousin was a sheriff, and I'll always throw that in. So they usually let me go. Well, we have these nice conversations. I'll pass on worklesshavemore.com. Do you realize we only need 1 day work weeks? That's all we need. Even as a cop, you could work just 1 day a week. Really?
Yeah, well, of course, if it ever gets to that point, you really won't need cops either. I mean, the reason you have pretty much what you have is because of the money. I mean, why would you steal anything? Why would you, take advantage of people, and most of it all does go back to the money. And people who say that's a simple answer, it's not that easy. That's because they don't.
It is the answer.
It is the answer, exactly. They really haven't.
Why are there drug dealers? The only reason there are drug dealers is drug dealers make money, and we need money to live right now.
Exactly.
That's the only reason they do it.
That's why
Take away the money, there's no more drug dealers.
Right.
Why will people rob? When we have 3D printers that can make anything, we have computers and robots that could draw exact replicas of the best art ever made. Just because Picasso made it, does it really matter? It looks exactly like it.
Right.
I mean, is your head that messed up that you've got to have the exact one Picasso painted?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the interesting thing about touching on technology again and 3D printing, and technology, hands down, has way surpassed humans' general awareness of how to use it and utilize it, and that's what makes it all possible. I mean, you go back 50, probably a little more, 100 or more years all throughout history, that's where it would have been harder to argue, that we could have a no money world and these and that things.
Well, no, if we go back far enough, remember, what came first? Humans came first, and we worked together in tribes with no money, with no keeping track. These people who do research on these type of things, on digs, they said, we've never found anything that shows writing down that people kept track of what was done.
Right.
So that was a lie. That was the thug, the king who came along. You had to pay the king some kind of rent. Back then it was food or clothes. If you made clothes, you gave the king half your clothes you made. That was the rent you paid the king. Then later they came up with the king's coin. That was the first, basically, money.
Mm-hmm.
We're told that money came about because you can't trade a cow for a chicken. Well, that's not true. If we go back to ownership, do you have a right to own another sentient being? Why do you think you have that right? Because you have this piece of paper that some thug made that says we need to use, all of a sudden gives you the right to own the dog that's in your house? I have 2 dogs in my house. I don't own them.
Right.
Even your children, you don't own them. Your parents don't own you. They guide you. You guide your children, but you don't own them.
Yeah. Well, I say the same thing talking to people about ownership. It's kind of like you mentioned earlier about, who gives you the authority? Well, who says you own that? Somebody, the bank, or who gives them the right to say it? Who gives that person the right to say it?
That's right. Who gave Ted Turner the right to own 2 million acres, almost 3 states of Rhode Island worth of land? And I have people still saying with the mindset, well, but how did he earn it? He earned it by exploiting and stealing from his workers.
Exactly.
So if you call robbing being earning, then no one should be in jail for stealing. They're just earning money, right? If somebody goes and robs something, they're just earning. Based on what you're saying, if a capitalist can steal people's excess labor value and exploit them, and even the capitalists themselves are exploited by the money system, they have to do something. I don't like to talk bad. The ones I call the thugs are the people who own and control the money system. Those are the main thugs. They know what they're doing. They know it's a scam. They know it's a con job, and that they keep doing it because they think they're better than us. They think for some reason their family was granted by God the right to own this planet and control everything and everyone on it.
Yeah, that's the reality, right? And again, you got to be psychopathic to be in that.
They are. I mean, it's a small group. There's a group of people below them that know the scam that's going on. But most people in the bank, I talked to the bank manager. I said, do you know where money comes from? She looks at me. She goes, and she says, well, I don't want to know. I said, why not? She goes, well, I like my job. I get paid good. And she literally ran into her office. She did not want to hear the truth of where money came from.
Right.
I just sat there and I'm laughing. Like, wow, people are messed up.
Well, it is the cognitive dissonance. And, that's what's kind of strange to me too. Again, talking about mindset and everything else is how, because again, the way that we're brought up and you see everything around you and people and TV, people think it's bad to not understand something or to be wrong. When in actuality, if I admit that I'm wrong or I don't understand something, at that point, I have acknowledged that I am ignorant on this subject or whatever. And now I'm transitioning into a new understanding of it. So it's actually a good thing because then you've realized that you were incorrect about this. It's not.
We only learn two ways: either from somebody who's already done it, or on our own, and we might make mistakes as we go along.
We all make mistakes. I mean, that is, I don't care who you are, you know, you could live to be 200, you're going to make mistakes.
I have to admit, even I made one mistake once. I thought I was wrong about something. It turned out I was right.
Oh, you took it from me, Michael. I say the same thing. People get a kick out of it. Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, that's, what do you do, right?
Not to mention, this whole thing's an illusion. If you know anything about biology, where trillions of individual cells plus other things like bacteria somehow looks like they stick together, somehow making it look like we're separate, yet even I can't put one arm through the other arm. It should be like a river, right? It's all individual cells and bacteria. Why can't I just put my arm through my other arm?
Right,
The whole thing's an illusion. Who was it? I forget what person said it, that life is an illusion, but it's so real looking.
Yeah.
Like if I close my eyes, is that tree still there? Well, if I walk forward, I'm going to hit that tree. It's weird.
Yeah, no, it really is. And I'm into all that. I really am. I know exactly what you're saying. And the fact that everything is just literally made up of individual cells, atoms, molecules, and even things that appear, you know, hard and stagnant and lifeless, like a rock. It's actually constantly little, you know, cells and stuff moving and vibrating. They you know, tense and or, you know, get tighter together, and that's why it creates a solid to us, you know. But well,
look at water is the only object that can be both like air, a solid, and a liquid.
Right. And it's the foundation of life, you know, the building block, at least that we know of. Yeah, and, you know, that's, speaking of all that, that's amazing to me, too, of course, is what we've discovered with science and the universe, and to realize how insanely small we are, you know.
Like the group Kansas said, dust in the wind.
Dust in the wind.
Even the Earth, I forget what planet it is 1 million times bigger than Earth. So if Earth was to hit it, Earth would just completely destroy, like a snowflake landing on your hand, and we'd all be gone.
Yeah. Well, I have you seen the pale blue dot image? The one that Voyager, I think it was, when it got so far out, the last communication they did, partly by Carl Sagan's doing and other astronomers that were, you know, they had it look back and take a picture of Earth, and the image has been dubbed the pale blue dot, and Carl Sagan wrote a piece about it. But that image is astounding, because when you see it, you see that even from, and I forget the exact distance, however many billions of miles the satellite was, you know, from Earth, but even from that small distance, it's far to us, but we are just a dot. It's like a pixel of a pixel.
Yeah.
And that's just from that distance. So, you know, I think of that when people say, well, why haven't we been contacted? There's other intelligent life. Do you realize even from that distance you can barely see us?
Maybe it's because they're intelligent. We haven't been contacted.
Well, you know, that's, again, we incorporate all the, you know, whether they're intelligent and don't pass us up, or they're already here, or those types of things. But just how small we are in the scheme of things. And, you know, nobody knows. Not one person on this earth knows why we are here. I don't care what you believe. You can believe whatever you want, but nobody knows 100%. But I know why we're not here. And I know we're not here to kill each other and to destroy our only home that we have. It's asinine. It's literally the definition of insanity.
Well, it's funny that we're the only species that can't actually do that.
Right.
So, you know, sometimes I ask myself, do we really belong on Earth? Were we placed here? Who knows? Because, man, why would you destroy your house? That'd be like you're sitting in your house. I don't know, let me set my house on fire. And just sit here and watch the fire. Hey, look how nice this fire is.
Yeah. It really is about this, essentially the same, you know. But obviously that goes to letting, believing in things that you shouldn't believe in and not questioning things that you should question, like government, politics, laws, those types of things, because those, as we know, are the destructive force. That is what's causing the problems and the destruction. And, the average person doesn't think like that.
I think it's laziness, too. They want someone else to do it for them. So the politician makes a promise, I'm going to change everything for you, and they never do. 240 years of voting, we're still financially enslaved here in the USA.
Yeah. Well, again, that's just a matter of understanding the true system and how things are. I mean, if you understand central banks, which are...
Well, no one could go in. Say you made me president. The first day I got in there, the economic hitman would come visit me and explain what's going to happen. They'd show me pictures of my family with red dots on the back of their heads when they were walking in the video, meaning there's a sniper on them right now, and they could just say, go, and they're dead. Now, what are you going to do? You're going to do what we tell you to do, or you're going to do what you want to do and make the no-money world? There goes my idea for a no-money world. Okay. Hey, folks, guess what? Capitalism really is good.
Right. Exactly.
And plus, for doing this, Michael, since we're not going to JFK you, we're going to actually give you millions of dollars for going along with us. Oh, okay.
Well, it's before they even get in there. I mean, that's, again, public record. In fact,
they're controlled, but all the control is based on the money system.
Exactly.
You would have no corporations that would have economic hitmen to come in and talk with you if there was no money. That's why money is the root. Everything else is a fruit. Even capitalism, I say, is a fruit of the root. Because without money, the capital, there is no capitalism. Now, there is, as some people say, capitalism is doing your own thing. Yeah, you would still do that. If you enjoyed making furniture, you would still make furniture for the community. There's still that aspect of it. But as far as capitalism, the way we run it today, no, it wouldn't exist without money.
No, not at all. That is the lifeblood of capitalism.
And even people point at, well, we tried socialism and communism. It didn't work. Did you really? Well, two things. Number one, did they have governments? Oh, right. Yeah, they had governments. Number two, which is actually should be number one, did they use money? Oh, yeah, they did. Well, who would think using money would not work in any system?
Right. It's the central control of the government or any entity for that matter.
Yeah, it controls everything.
Right. Yep. Like we were talking earlier about having control. Who am I to tell you what to do? Who are you to tell me? Or who is any government to tell the people?
Now, there's two ways of looking at that in the future. If you want to go live in the woods somewhere, build a log cabin. If you want to hunt, you hunt. I'm a vegan, but if you want to hunt, that's your decision, to have your clothing, and you just want to do that and grow some food around you, fine. But now if you want other stuff that requires other people to make it, well, come be part of the community now. Work your 1 day a week, whatever you want to do, whatever you like doing that helps the community. Here's the jobs we need done. Just because you like playing drums doesn't mean the community needs that.
Right.
So if you can play your drums 6.5 days a week after you help out your 8 hours.
Well, yeah, I mean, and of course that's the thing we understand, but for the audience that is the reality. I mean, kind of like I try to explain about, just even take the current situation, as far as, working 1 day a week. That's hard to grasp for a lot of people because again, they're looking at it in this current system, but even hypothetically in this current system, what we already have, the needs, the production, the resources, stuff like that, you already have a job, where you have 10 people working 40 hours. Well, look at all these people who aren't working or who are doing meaningless, mindless, repetitious jobs that could be automated. Mm-hmm. You could, again, go on, but basically all these extra hands. So if we were talking common sense world and supposedly everything is just being done for the end result of, the production of it, then instead of me working 40 hours, 5 of us each work 1 day a week.
That's right.
It's that simple. Literally, it's that simple, and that's it. So then,
especially once you get rid of money, you get rid of all the jobs that have to do with money. There's
exactly.
no more banks. There's no more insurance companies. There's no more real estate agents. There's no more advertising and marketing places.
Exactly.
There's no more cashier makers. There's no more credit card makers. So many jobs just go away.
Right. Right. Exactly, Michael. And that's another key point is not only the people who are unemployed now or the automation or whatnot, but again, just taking the current system, right? If you eliminated that, you would have a ridiculous amount of the so-called workforce that wouldn't have a meaningless, mindless, pointless job because it would be obsolete. So they could then help out with the jobs that still needed to be done. Really the only so-called jobs you really need is the production and the distribution and those types of things.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and
that's
don't forget,
it.
we're going to get rid of a lot of stuff too. We're not going to make knickknacks anymore.
Right.
You're going to have your own 3D printer in town. There'll be a nice 3D printer, a bunch of them at the library. Everybody can have what they want. They can do it from home and just have it waiting for them at the library. They're doing for space travel now. They're going to bring a 3D printer with them to make any tools they need in case a tool breaks.
I actually saw that somewhere. Right.
So they don't have to call Ace Hardware. Hey, can you ship us up a tool here? We need it.
Yeah, be there in 2 weeks, buddy.
Get it up there.
And on that note of launching screwdrivers and hammers into space so they can get screwed and hammered in the space station, I'd like to thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you got something out of it. If you go in the description, you should find a link to my show's homepage with my contact info. Please feel free to email, follow, share, comment, like, subscribe. I welcome any and all feedback or support. And I hope you'll tune in next time for another episode of the All Real Show. We are one.